The Apache widow returned and discovered the incredible truth. Her daughter has a new father. Talia stared at the glow of the phone screen, shock coursing through her veins. Lily and Charles stood there, their faces alight with laughter, as if they shared an inside joke that Talia was excluded from. The blood rushed in her ears, drowning out the noise of the busy diner around her. Each table she served suddenly blurred into a distant world, disconnected from her reality. "How could this be happening?" she muttered, clenching her fists at her sides. As a widow, Talia already felt like an outsider in her own life, navigating a series of exhausting jobs just to keep the lights on. By day, she balanced coffee cups and breakfast orders. By night, she scrubbed floors of the affluent, their laughter echoing through lavish homes while she was acutely aware of her worn-out clothes. It wasn't just work, it was survival. And now, the image on the phone twisted in her mind. Charles, a businessman draped in privilege, was offering her daughter a glimpse of a life Talia couldn't provide. Her heart sank deeper, gnawed by the gnawing sensation of inadequacy. Just then, thoughts replayed memories of her late husband. They had fought tirelessly to build a future for Lily, yet now, someone else, someone wealthy, was slipping into their space. How could she compete with dreams woven in silk and dinners held at glittering tables? She wanted to shield Lily from disappointment, but a more significant dread rooted itself in her mind. What if Charles became a father figure she could never be to her daughter? Talia took a breath, completing her shift in a daze. She knew she needed to confront Lily, to untangle this new web of emotions before it trapped them both. But guilt coiled around her thoughts. What kind of mother would confront a friendship? She couldn't shake the doubt that loomed over her, casting a long shadow. Yet every time she thought of Lily's bright smile in those photographs, a wave of anger surged. Was this how it starts? She questioned internally, her body tense with each passing moment. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The next day felt unnaturally heavy as Talia studied Lily's face, searching for clues. The sparkle in the girl's eyes shone brighter than she remembered, and it twisted the knife deeper, knew she could never match that. When they sat down to dinner, Talia hesitated, determined to break the silence. "Lily, about Charles." Her voice faltered, a fierce storm of emotions racing in her mind. What would she unleash by speaking? Tension dripped painfully in the air, Lily's confusion clawing at the edges of Talia's resolve. Just as she covered the table and dishes, she thought about her late husband, the dreams they shared, and now this strange presence threatening to supplant everything. "I thought you loved me more than him," Lily whispered suddenly, her voice shaking like a fragile leaf in a tempest. Those words shattered Talia's heart, revealing the chasm that had developed between them. She faced a choice that paralyzed her. Would she embrace this new kind of family, or would she fight tooth and nail against losing her child? Standing at the precipice, she realized the battle for her daughter's heart had begun. But as night fell, uncertainty loomed larger than ever. Would love be enough to bridge the ever-widening gap, or was she destined to fracture under the weight of moments that could alter their lives forever? The morning after that heart-wrenching dinner, Talia woke to the familiar sounds of the world outside. A dog barking, distant traffic, the neighbor's lawnmower making its weekly appearance. But inside, she felt adrift, a ship untethered from the dock. She had always measured her days by what was required of her, rarely pausing to consider what she wanted or needed. Yet after Lily's confrontation, everything shifted. Her daughter was right. Lily did deserve love. But Talia couldn't help but question if she was enough. As she prepared for her morning shift, Talia studied her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She was exhausted, the dark circles under her eyes emphasized by the harsh yellow light. Her heart heavy, she whispered to herself, "You are her mother. You are enough." But each time she mumbled those words, she felt their weight burden her more than lift her. Today would require a new approach, she thought. It was time to confront not just Lily, but the reality that loomed like a storm cloud overhead. Work at the diner was a blur. Orders blended into one another, and the laughter of regulars echoed around her. One table seated near the window caught her attention. A young couple clearly in love, sharing whispered secrets and stolen glances. Talia felt a pang in her chest. That should be her and Lily, not a distant memory. After her shift, instead of heading home, Talia decided to take a detour. She found herself at the local library, a sanctuary from her chaotic thoughts. She had been avoiding this place for years, afraid of the memories. It had been a happy space for her family during her husband's lifetime, but today, facing uncertainty, Talia looked for something to ground her. She wandered through the aisles, perusing titles that resonated with her tangled emotions. Eventually, she settled into a quiet nook with a book on parenting. As she immersed herself in the pages, Talia felt a tidal wave of realizations wash over her. Empathy, communication, self-awareness. Each chapter was a reminder that she didn't have to compete with Charles. Instead, she had to reinforce her bond with Lily, build a foundation that couldn't be shaken by external influences. Hours flew by, and when Talia finally left, the sun hung low in the sky, painting everything in hues of gold. She gathered her thoughts, ready to speak with Lily not out of fear, but from a place of strength and understanding. It wasn't just about claiming her role as a mother, it was about nurturing the relationship she had with her daughter. She decided that insecurities would not dictate her actions. That evening, when they settled on the couch together, Talia looked at Lily, who was absorbed in her phone, unaware of the storm raging through her mother's heart. Talia took a deep breath and asked gently, "Lily, can we talk?" Lily turned to her, apprehension flickering in her eyes. "About Charles?" Talia nodded, determination replacing the uncertainty that had clouded her mind. She would listen. She would seek to understand. She would remind Lily of her place in the world, not as a rival to a new father figure, but as her biggest fan and ally. With that intent heavy in the air, Talia prepared to cross an invisible boundary. She could sense that this moment would define their relationship moving forward. She felt ready, but also alarmed, as if she were stepping onto a tightrope. Would it strengthen their bond or pull them further apart? The truth, she realized, was that the complexities of love and family were not solely hers to navigate. They were a shared journey. Just as the librarian once told her, every story has its struggles and resolutions. And in that mix lay the real power, the ability to face whatever came next together. As she opened her mouth to speak, a sudden knock at the door interrupted her thoughts, and her heart raced. The last thing she needed was another complication. Who could it be? Talia's mind raced as she froze, heart pounding against her ribcage. The knock felt ominous, a prelude to uncertainty. She shot a quick glance at Lily, who looked equally bewildered. They exchanged an unspoken understanding, a moment of solidarity and vulnerability. This was it. No more avoidance, no more silence. With a deliberate inhale, Talia took a step toward the door. Each footfall felt weighted, yet the resolve to face whatever lay ahead propelled her forward. When she finally opened the door, a head of tousled hair and a bright smile greeted her, a familiar face she had scarcely expected to see. It was Clara, her neighbor and friend, clutching a basket of cookies like an offering. "Hey, Talia, I brought these over to cheer you up." Clara's voice was upbeat, a stark contrast to the turmoil whirling inside Talia's head. Talia summoned a smile, grateful but unable to shake the feeling that Clara's timing couldn't have been worse. "Thanks, Clara. That's so sweet of you." Clara moved to enter without waiting for further invitation, but Talia subtly halted her, nodding towards Lily. Clara's smile faltered slightly as she recognized the heaviness that hung in the air. "Am I interrupting something?" "Just an important conversation," Talia said, the weight of her words sinking in as she uttered them. Tension crackled like static electricity. "Oh, okay. Well, I won't stay then, but let me know if you want to grab coffee later," Clara offered, her hopeful gaze shifting back and forth between mother and daughter. "Sure, I'd like that," Talia replied, appreciating the lifeline her friend offered, even if it felt like it drifted further away as she closed the door. She turned to Lily, whose expression had shifted from curiosity to visible discomfort. "What was that about?" Lily probed, her words edged with irritation. Nothing, just... I didn't want to have company right now, Talia said, crossing her arms instinctively. It's because of Charles, isn't it? The accusation hung heavily between them. The walls felt as though they were closing in, a familiar sensation of panic tightening her chest. It's not just about him, Lily, it's about us. I want to talk about how we're feeling, not avoid it. An impasse loomed, and Talia felt its weight tugging at her. But she had resolved to confront this moment, to break down the barriers they had collectively reinforced. Look, can we just sit and talk, please? Talia offered, gesturing toward the couch. Lily hesitated, then released a frustrated sigh, but slowly moved toward the couch. Talia joined her, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words. The shadows that danced across the room felt like reflections of their hidden fears. Taking a deep breath, Talia opened her mouth to finally voice her thoughts, when Lily suddenly blurted out, I just feel like I can't talk to you anymore. You're always so focused on what Charles does and doesn't do. It's like you've forgotten who I am. Those words cut deeper than Talia had anticipated, igniting her resolve. I'm trying to be present, but I'm learning too, Lily. It's hard, for both of us. I want to understand your feelings about Charles. I don't want to compete. I want to be your mom, not just someone trying to figure it out while we both suffer. Tension crackled, but Talia continued, Let's figure it out, you and me. You deserve to feel heard. The vulnerability in her plea hung tangible in the air. As the silence engulfed them, Talia noticed a reluctant shift in Lily's expression, a flicker of hope in her brow. Okay, Lily finally whispered, her walls lowering minutely. But if we're doing this, you have to promise to listen, no interruptions. Talia nodded, her heart swelling with an anxious mix of excitement and apprehension. This was a critical juncture, a moment that could redefine their relationship, one word at a time. As Talia opened her mouth again, ready to truly listen, a new thought struck her. What if the conversation led to revelations she hadn't anticipated? What would it mean for both of them? But before she could voice her next words, another unexpected knock reverberated through the room, shaking the atmosphere they had just begun to stabilize. Who is it now? She wondered aloud, the feeling of foreboding rising again. Talia's heart raced anew as uncertainty flooded her mind. The second knock was less routine, pregnant with implications that the previous interruption had almost distracted her from. She stole a glance at Lily, whose brow furrowed with confusion, mirroring Talia's own trepidation. What if it's him? What if it's Charles? Lily whispered, the words laced with a hint of dread that cracked through the fragile truce they had just begun to forge. Keep calm, Talia breathed, moving slowly toward the door, trying to quell her own rising panic. Each step felt like walking through thick mud as her instincts battled against the surge of adrenaline. She clasped the doorknob tightly, steadied herself with a deep breath, and swung the door wide open. Standing there was not Charles, but rather a stern-faced woman she recognized from the community, a social worker. The sudden change in energy knocked the breath out of her. This was unexpected. Ms. Monroe? The woman asked, her tone unfaltering. I need to speak with you regarding your daughter's case. An icy tension enveloped Talia, her thoughts racing back to the numerous discussions surrounding Charles's influence on Lily's life. What now? She was vaguely aware of Lily peering over Talia's shoulder, curiosity mingling with fear. Is something wrong? Talia managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. May I come in? The woman insisted, her demeanor leaving little room for dissent. Talia stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. The edges of the confrontation felt imminent as the social worker walked past her and settled on the edge of the couch, as if claiming the ground for the serious dialogue that loomed. I've been monitoring the situation with Charles and the implications it has on Lily, the social worker began, her eyes steady and directive. I believe it's crucial we address some pressing concerns. Every word hit Talia like a drumbeat of anxiety, drowning out the hope she had just begun to grasp. The thought of her life being scrutinized yet again dredged up memories of nights spent digging through her own anxieties, constantly balancing safety and independence for her daughter. What concerns? Talia's voice quivered, uncertainty clawing at her resolve as she motioned for Lily to sit beside her. The social worker's gaze flickered momentarily to Lily, and Talia noticed Lily's shift, her shoulders hunched as she intuitively leaned away, the once blooming connection wilting under this unexpected pressure. It concerns the influence Charles may have over Lily, and whether or not that environment is conducive for her well-being, the woman continued, her tone tinted with professionalism that bordered on coldness. A lump formed in Talia's throat as the implication sank in. You mean, negating our chances? You think I can't handle our situation? That Charles is a danger? The words rolled out, tinged with a struggle for justification, a mother's instinct defending her territory against perceived threats. But Talia could feel her defenses shaking. We look at all key influences in a child's life, the woman stated, emphasizing the impersonal nature of her profession. This is about doing what's best for Lily. Each syllable resonated like a clap of thunder in Talia's head. She knew this moment could redefine their journey, potentially force her choices, and reveal intense vulnerabilities not yet explored between her and Lily. Turning to Lily, Talia noticed her daughter's face etched with confusion, her silence screaming louder than any spoken word. This was their moment, the potential to confront both the painful whispers from the past and the looming specters of the future. Lily, Talia began cautiously, a spark of determination igniting within her. We need to be honest with each other and confront this together. I won't let anyone dictate our family's path. You deserve to be heard, even in this present darkness. Lily's gaze met hers, a gaze filled with both fear and rebellious courage, and in that moment, Talia recognized the power of direct confrontation. As they faced the unknown together, Talia's heart began to settle into a rhythm of resolve. This was their chance to outline boundaries, affirm family, and lend voice to their unspoken truths. The time had come for each revelation to emerge from the shadows. But just as the air thickened with anticipation, the social worker's phone buzzed, slicing through the tension. Her expression shifted, unreadable as she checked the message, a fleeting glimpse of urgency casting the room back into uncertainty. What now? Talia thought, dread heating her veins as she braced for whatever news awaited them next. The social worker's brow furrowed, her eyes momentarily locked on the screen of her phone. Talia's heart raced, a cold sweat prickling her palms. The woman shifted on the couch, dismissing the two of them with a mere flick of her gaze that suggested everything was about to change. "Excuse me for a moment," the social worker said, rising abruptly. She stepped outside into the hallway, leaving the door ajar, a crack that let Talia overhear muted conversations just beyond her threshold. Tension coiled in the air, thick and electric. What was that? Talia's mind buzzed with questions, but she reined herself in, focusing instead on her daughter. Lily's expression had morphed, digesting the latest development as she remained glued to her seat, her small body seemingly more fragile now than ever. "Mom?" Lily's voice broke the silence, a tremor of fear lacing her words. "Do you think they're going to take me away?" Talia's resolve hardened in the face of Lily's anxiety. She positioned herself closer to her daughter, enfolding her in a protective embrace. "No, sweetheart, nobody's taking you anywhere. We're going to fight for us, I promise." Yet internally Talia grappled with her insecurities. What kind of mother had put her daughter in such a position? The nagging doubts thrashed against her determination. Perhaps Charles's influence was more insidious than she wanted to admit. "Mom, you trust me, right?" Lily's earnestness shone through the veil of confusion. Talia opened her mouth to reassure her, but the words caught in her throat. Would she truly trust her daughter to handle whatever was brewing beneath the surface? "Of course, Lily, but we need to be prepared for anything. We can't let fear dictate our actions," Talia replied, though a part of her wondered if they were deluding themselves. The social worker returned, her expression unreadable, the earlier urgency replaced by an almost clinical detachment. "We've received some new information about your case, Ms. Monroe. I think we need to discuss it right now." Talia's instincts flared, her stomach twisting as if ensnared by a predator. "What information?" she asked, her voice sharpened by a blend of trepidation and defiance. "The state has conducted an evaluation of Charles, They're concerned about his recent behavior, and there's a possibility he might be moving to challenge custody arrangements, the woman stated, brief and devoid of empathy. You need to be ready. A panel has been scheduled for next week. Talia's heart sank. A panel? What does that mean for us? She could already envision the confrontation with Charles, an all-consuming battle to preserve her family against an adversary whom she believed she could outmaneuver. It means we must prepare a case in your favor. This is your chance, the woman replied, her tone surprisingly motivating. Underneath Talia's swirling anxiety, a fighting spirit emerged. Then I'll show them that I'm the best parent for Lily, that Charles is a risk. I'll gather evidence. I'll prove it. Lily looked to Talia with a mix of concern and admiration. You will? But how? I don't know yet, but we'll do this together, Lily, Talia resolved, her mind racing with ideas of how to reinforce their position. She envisioned speaking to neighbors, collecting documents, perhaps even consulting a lawyer. Each new possibility embedded itself into her path, igniting determination within her. Talia's thoughts began to shift. This wasn't just about protecting her daughter. This was a pivotal moment for her as well. She realized she had the power to determine her family's fate through courage and strategy, maybe even hidden talents and more resilience than she had tapped into before. But as she held Lily close, ready to charge into the battle ahead, something nagged at the back of her mind. If she was to confront Charles and counteract his potential influence, she would also need to confront her own vulnerabilities. Could she balance that struggle with the expectations of safeguarding Lily? Mom? It was Lily again, pulling her back from her spiraling thoughts. Yeah, sweetie. I think we should make a plan, like a treasure map with what we need to do next. Can we? A smile crept onto Talia's face despite the weight on her shoulders. That's a fantastic idea, Lily. We'll map out every step together. As they began to brainstorm, Talia felt a tinge of excitement surging within her. Perhaps she had not been only defending her daughter, but rediscovering herself in this maze of uncertainty. And just as they dove into their collaborative strategy, Talia's phone buzzed sharply against the table, cutting through the moment like a sword. She checked the display and found a message from an unknown number, simply reading, I know what you are planning. Better watch your back. For a moment, reality felt like a whirlwind, and the ground beneath her seemed ready to give way. Talia's heartbeat quickened, fear coiling itself anew. Who was this? What did they want? This is just getting started, she thought, bracing for the unraveling implications of what lay ahead. Talia's hands trembled slightly as she reread the chilling message on her phone. Each word felt like a cold snap of reality, threatening to shatter the fragile sanctuary she had begun to establish with Lily. Better watch your back. It wasn't just a warning. It was an accusation cloaked in intimidation. She glanced at her daughter, whose brows knitted together in confusion, unaware of the storm brewing in her mother's mind. Mom, what's wrong? Lily prompted, catching the sudden tension that had clouded the room. Nothing, sweetheart. Just a silly message, Talia replied, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. Inside, her thoughts spiraled. Who could be watching them? Was Charles behind this? The looming doubts about his character, now magnified by this reach into their lives, stung like a bitter wind. Let's get back to our map, she suggested, pushing the phone aside. The act was more than just distraction. It was a concerted effort to regain control, to redefine their narrative. As they planned how they would document their lives in the coming week, mentioning the good moments, the loving interactions, the hours of laughter, the duality of Talia's mind began to clear. But the more tangible task of planning for the panel ahead loomed large. It would not be solely about proving Charles unfit. She would also require evidence of her capability as a mother. Frustration bubbled beneath the surface. Her failures flashed before her, taunting her as if to say she wasn't enough. But pushing through the doubt, she sought to reframe her past mistakes as foundational lessons. That's it, Talia realized, a sudden clarity dawning on her. I can highlight how I've grown. All the struggles I faced with work, with Charles, they all shaped my parenting. She began sketching out her thoughts in a notebook, writing about her decision to leave a job that had stifled her potential. Each choice, each sacrifice had been a step toward a more determined version of herself. As they drew arrows connecting actions to outcomes, Talia felt the flicker of hope rekindling. The thought of speaking to neighbors, reaching out to those who had witnessed their lives, each person a potential ally in this fight, turned the tide of her despair towards strategy. "Okay, what else?" she asked Lily, who was now busy doodling in color around the perimeter of their map. "Maybe we could ask Mrs. Sanchez next door. She loves playing with me, and she sees how you take care of me, right?" Lily said, her eyes brightening with each idea. Talia marveled at her daughter's intuition. Childlike optimism served as a powerful counterbalance to her own doubts. Throughout the evening, they prepared, intent on capturing daily moments of joy that showcased their bond. They spoke about the little rituals, the stories shared over pancakes, the bedtime songs that turned into giggle fests. Talia visualized how she would present their life as one built on unyielding love and creative resilience. But as night fell and a creeping tiredness set in, the unease returned. Alone in her bed, Talia mentally scrolled through the possibilities of Charles's response. The darkness thickened with uncertainty. Could he undermine her efforts, twisting every moment she planned to highlight? When sleep finally embraced her, it was jagged and restless. Visions of the upcoming panel haunted her, morphing from a simple evaluation into a dangerous battlefield. She awoke multiple times, heart racing, panic gripping her throat. The world outside was still cold and dark when Talia decided she could not wait for more trouble to arrive. She would have to act, ensuring she wasn't on the defensive solely. She owed it to Lily, and to herself, to take the initiative. Early the next morning, Talia gathered her thoughts and resources with a newfound vigor. They needed evidence, witnesses, and character endorsements. She would reach out to both the neighbors and friends who had been a part of their world. Each collected statement would add to her arsenal. Just as she began to type out a message to Mrs. Sanchez, another notification buzzed on her phone, this time with a clearer identity. It was not someone watched from the shadows, but a message from an old friend, an attorney specializing in family law. "Hey Talia, I heard you've been going through a tough time. Can we talk? I might have some helpful information for you." Her heart beat faster. This was the lifeline she had been subconsciously grasping for, the chance to confront the dangers threatening her family with professional counsel. But was it a trap or a genuine offer? Feeling only a surge of determination, Talia typed a response, inching closer to an unknown path that could yield unforeseen allies or fresh conflicts. As she hit send, it struck her. This was no longer just about protecting Lily. It became a matter of reclaiming her voice, her narrative. Each decision, each step forward pulled her deeper into the fray, and it was time to prepare for whatever would come next. Little did she know that the next message she received could either be the answer she desperately needed or a devastating blow that could shake their world to its core. Talia's heart raced as she stared at the glowing screen, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. There was so much at stake, and uncertainty swirled within her, threatening to paralyze her resolve. What if the conversation took a turn she could not navigate? Her mind reeled back to the unsteady ground she had felt with Charles, the last sour whispers that held too many regrets. But she shook the dark thoughts off. She had come too far to falter now. Taking a deep breath, she crafted a succinct reply, expressing her willingness to meet. As she sent the message, a weight lifted slightly. It was a strategic first move, a step towards stability she so desperately sought. Each subsequent minute felt like a lifetime, filled with visions of worst-case scenarios. Yet there was a flicker of hope, igniting a determined fire within her soul. Perhaps this was what she needed, a clearer direction, a partnership for her defense. After some time, a response came back almost as quickly as she had sent her own. "Great, let's meet at Java Point around 5 p.m. It was a casual setting, familiar and comforting. Talia knew that proximity to coffee and community might just step her away from doubts and dread. She turned toward the window, the light of morning flooding in through the glass, illuminating the kitchen where countless moments of love had been shared with Lily. Vowing not to drop the ball, Talia shifted her attention back to their home. She began organizing. Every corner needed to reflect her growth, not just as a mother, but as a woman reclaiming her autonomy. She washed dishes, vacuumed the rooms, and shuffled through old toys, tucking away anything that did not promote the narrative she was determined to build. By the afternoon, she was buzzing with energy, a storm of hope and trepidation swirling within her. What had once felt claustrophobic now brimmed with the promise of clarity. She busied herself with recollections of her life with Lily, documenting it all fiercely in her notebook. Each page became a testament, capturing not merely the chaos, but also the resilience in the tenderness of their shared moments. "Mom," came Lily's voice, pulling her from her immersive thoughts. "Can I help with dinner tonight?" Turning to face her daughter, Talia marveled at Lily's spirit, a spirit she had nurtured against all odds. "Of course, sweetheart, we can make that pasta you love." The kitchen was both their canvas and sanctuary, a shared space glowing with simple joys. As they stirred sauce and rolled out dough, Talia made a concerted effort to engage in light conversation, deliberately investing in these moments to seal them as vivid memories. Later, when they settled down to eat, Talia caught herself scrutinizing her daughter with a mix of love and protective fierceness. She was no longer just a scaffolding for Lily, but a solid foundation, one that had endured storms and could stand strong against the winds of judgment. This was part of her journey. After they finished, Talia's nerves began to surface again, shivers of doubt creeping up her spine as she prepared to leave for the meeting with her old friend. What if this attorney could expose her vulnerabilities, flipping the narrative entirely? She shook her head, refusing to lean into that fear. This meeting was for empowerment, not submission. As she slipped out into the night, a firm resolve settled within her. She would no longer act from a place of fear, but from a place of intention. Maybe the darkness promised danger, but it was also where her power had the chance to shine. Arriving outside Java Point, Talia took a moment to steady her breathing. The cafe pulsed with life. The scent of coffee mingled with chatter, lifting her spirits momentarily. Her heart raced anew, not just from anxiety but from the thrill of a new beginning. Just as she entered, spotting her friend at a corner table, she overheard snippets of conversation from other patrons that made her pause. "Did you hear about Charles getting that job? Seems like he's back in the picture." Each word struck like a jab, uncertainty flooding back into her thoughts, erasing the affirmations she had gathered. Bounding towards the table, the chaos of conversation blended with a mental reiteration. Her path was her own to carve out, despite the shadows of others looming behind her. Talia sat across from her friend, emotions swelling as she reminded herself of her purpose here tonight. As they exchanged pleasantries, Talia sensed the discussions around her fading into the background, immersing herself in the pertinent information she hoped to absorb. She truly needed to know. Then, as her friend leaned in closer to share something that could change everything, Talia's heart thudded with foreboding anticipation. What revelation awaited, and would it fortify her or crush her spirit? The weight of her choices and the profound unknown loomed ahead, drawing her deeper into the journey she had only just begun to navigate. The noise of Java Point faded into a distant hum as Talia sat with her friend, her attention drawn to the coffee swirling in the ceramic mug. The warmth seeped through her fingers, a fragile comfort amidst the tumult of her thoughts. Each detail of the cafe, soft chatter, clinking cups, and the aromatic bliss of caffeine felt magnified, almost surreal, as if layers of reality peeled away to reveal the core of her nervousness. "Are you okay?" her friend asked, breaking the silence, the concern evident in her tone. A slight smile attempted to form on Talia's lips, but it faltered under the weight of everything unsaid. "Yeah, I want to do this right." The words felt heavy, labored as they spilled out. Uncertainty churned within her, twisting into a knot of fear. The very prospect of seeking legal counsel, of fighting for her life, her rights, and ultimately her daughter's future, felt as daunting as climbing a mountain devoid of gear. Her friend nodded, offering a reassuring smile. "You deserve to have clarity, Talia. You fought through so much." The candle flickered softly on the table, illuminating Talia's resolve. A quiet strength began to bubble up, nudging aside doubt. She was no longer just a passive participant in her own life. She was at a pivotal crossroads, and every decision she made mattered. The snores of the past faded as the spark of her aspirations ignited more fiercely. "What do you need to know?" her friend prompted gently. Talia took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "What should I be prepared for?" The conversation with Charles. What if this pushes him to retaliate? The question lingered in the air, weighted and vulnerable. Her friend's expression shifted, her brow furrowing slightly. "With what you've told me about him, I think he might try to use this against you. But you've been resilient, Talia. Remember that." Instead of dismissing the looming threat, Talia contemplated it. What had it taken for her to reach this moment? It was more than just tactical maneuvers. It had been the building of a foundation that could withstand bitter storms. She could become her own fortress, a secure haven for Lily amid the wreckage of the past. Conversation shifted as her friend leaned in, sharing insights about legal options that felt like a lifeboat tossed into turbulent seas. Talia absorbed every detail. The language resonated with newfound purpose. She absorbed the plans, strategies, and potential barriers of her case like a dry sponge reaching for water. She was preparing herself for battle. Every mention of legal terminology hardened her resolve. But deep within, a worry slunk its way back into her psyche. What truths lay buried beneath the surface? The mention of Charles's new job echoed mercilessly, prompting a swirling of doubt. Had he truly moved on, reshaped his life while she battled to rebuild her own? As if sensing her internal struggle, her friend touched Talia's hand, grounding her back to the moment. "You're not in this alone. Reach out to those who will support you." "But what do I do when the support isn't enough?" The frustration erupted before she could contain it. A sense of vulnerability cascaded over her. Would support be enough to shield her from the possible fallout of her escalating battle with Charles? Then you find strength in yourself. That's where you'll discover the warrior within you. A shiver coursed through Talia. Warrior. The word sparked something. Not merely a title, but a mantle to be worn. A role she could embody. She envisioned herself unearthing fragments of courage she had long buried, using them to navigate the storm ahead. Time slipped by as they continued their conversation. Talia began to crystallize her strategy, envisioning how to confront Charles. The tension in her chest lessened as she maneuvered her plans, weighing her decisions with care. Knowledge was becoming her currency. As the night deepened, Talia sensed that she was moving towards something profound, something she had scarcely imagined she could grasp. The truth, once a nebulous fear, was now a concrete force propelling her into action. "All right, tomorrow I face him," she declared, her voice steady, emboldened by the clarity she'd gained. Yet, as she rose to leave, a disquieting thought stopped her short. What if facing him led to revelations about her own life, ones she hadn't anticipated? In the space between inhale and exhale, she realized there was a line in her own narrative that she hadn't just been avoiding. Maybe Charles held a key to a window she had never looked through, a truth too unsettling to confront head-on. With a mix of determination and trepidation, Talia walked out of Java Point, fully aware that she was stepping into a whirlwind. The real battle was yet to come, a confrontation with both the man who had once been her anchor and the unknown territories of her own heart. Tomorrow would not just be about legal strategies, it would demand a reckoning, a plunge into the very depths of her reality. The moment Talia closed her eyes that night, one truth began to loom over her thoughts. What if tomorrow revealed far more than she ever intended to face? The morning light spat through her window like shards of glass, forcing Talia to wake with an urgency she hadn't anticipated. Her heart raced as she glanced at the clock, the minutes slipping away like grains of sand in an hourglass. Today was the day, and with it came the realization that her life could change irrevocably. Talia felt the weight of her decision press down on her chest, an invisible force urging her to acknowledge the truth she had tried to avoid. The confrontation with Charles was not merely a logistical meeting, it was a reckoning of identities, his, hers, and the fragile dreams she had crafted around Lily. As she moved through her morning routine, each action felt choreographed. The aroma of coffee mingled with the scent of toast, but it did little to quell the turmoil within. She needed focus. She needed strength. With every sip, she visualized herself rising, transforming from a hesitant participant into a formidable contender, a warrior in her own right. Her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a message from her legal counsel reminding her of their meeting later. Panic flared, and after a moment's hesitation, Talia took a deep breath. She envisioned her attorney as a trusted shield against Charles's potential onslaught. For the first time, she felt the semblance of a plan, an assurance that she was not alone in this. Let's go over the details again, she murmured to herself, replaying the strategies in her mind. The legal jargon danced around her thoughts, each term growing more familiar, less intimidating. Custody, visitation, and the likelihood of support modification. In an unexpected moment of resolve, she recalled the advice her friend had given her, to seek support not merely from others, but from within. Talia grabbed a notepad and began jotting down her thoughts, her fears, and her assertions. This was her weapon, her testimony, words transformed into a lifeline. The act of writing itself became a cathartic release, each stroke breathing life into her convictions. Hours later, she arrived at the modest office where the meeting would unfold, heart pounding but primed. The rhythm of her breath steadied as she greeted the attorney. They delved into the strategy, revisiting the potential scenarios that lay ahead. Talia found herself absorbing the information like a sponge, recognizing her growing power in the conversation. Every insight she learned became a shard of armor she could wear into battle. Yet a gnawing question lingered. What would Charles say? He was unpredictable, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their meeting could escalate into something more incendiary than mere words exchanged over a table. She knew his capabilities, the chaos he could conjure. The attorney's voice brought her back. Remember, Talia, you need to stay grounded. Focus on your daughter's well-being above all else. That was it. Lily, her fierce motivation. The thought set fire to the malice of doubt festering within. Talia squared her shoulders, preparing herself, rehearsing in her mind the lines she would articulate with conviction when the time came. As the clock ticked toward the meeting time, Talia found herself oscillating between dread and determination. She was not just confronting Charles today. She was confronting her past, her regrets, and the shadows that threatened to consume her resolve. With each step toward the civic building, Talia recalled fragments of her life shared with Charles. Those moments of laughter entwined with heart-wrenching silence. Would he be willing to listen? Or would he wrap himself in indignation? Entering the austere hall, she scanned for signs of familiarity, yet paranoia lingered at the edges of her vision. Despite feeling alone, one truth anchored her. Either she controlled this narrative or it would spiral into chaos. And then, just as the moment for confrontation drew near, she caught a glimpse of someone she hadn't expected to see, a familiar figure leaving the conference room across the hallway. Shock reverberated through her as questions flooded her mind. Why was Jill, Charles's new girlfriend, here? Had she come for support, or was she there as a pawn in a game Talia hardly understood? Talia stood frozen, a wave of realization crashing over her. This battle was about more than just her custody fight. It was about the illusions she had to unravel, the family Charles had begun to forge without her, potentially including a new life for Lily. In that moment, the stakes became crystal clear. What lay ahead was not merely a battle for her daughter. It was a confrontation with the unknown, a reckoning with truths that might shatter her world even further. As she approached the conference room, resolve firmed within her. Today, she would not just face Charles. She would also stare down the possibility of losing her daughter to a new narrative that didn't include her. What if this was only the beginning, Talia wondered, and the reality of her situation was about to become more complicated than she ever anticipated? Talia stepped through the meeting room door, every ounce of confidence she had worked so hard to cultivate on display. The air held a heavy tension, and as she moved into the sterile space, every heartbeat echoed the mantra she had recited throughout the morning, I am enough, I am her mother. Charles stood at the far end of the room, his presence as imposing as she remembered. He was engaged in conversation with Jill, whom Talia now recognized as a looming threat, an unfamiliar variable in this intricate equation of their lives. Tension rippled through Talia's body, but she quelled her instinct to recoil. This was about more than her past with Charles. It was about seizing the future for herself and, above all, for Lily. Let's just focus on what works best for our daughter, Talia thought, grounding herself as she approached the table, hearing her own footsteps echoing on the polished floor. The attorney greeted her with a supportive nod, illuminating the murky waters ahead. All right, Talia, remember our plan. Talia wanted to smile, to forge ahead with determination, but the reality of Jill's presence disrupted her flow. The woman smiled sweetly at Talia, a gesture that felt foreign in this battleground. It was a bold move to be here, and Talia felt the weight of challenge sharpen as she met Jill's gaze. Before the attorneys exchanged pleasantries, Talia interrupted, her voice firm enough to command attention, challenging the awkwardness that floated like a specter above them. "Charles, we need to talk about Lily." The anticipation crackled in the air, an electric current coursing through both parties as every eye in the room fixated on Talia. It was a pivotal moment. She had harnessed all the strength and parental love she gathered through sleepless nights and anxious days, and now was the time to wield it. "I want to ensure she continues to feel secure and loved in a stable environment," Talia asserted, feeling ownership of her words resonate in the room. "Over the last few weeks, I've had time to reflect not just on our past, but on the kind of future Lily deserves, and she deserves both of us working together, not against each other." Charles's expression shifted, annoyance flickering through his carefully constructed facade. "And what does that mean? You have little say in what happens now, Talia." Beneath her composed exterior, a familiar wave of doubt threatened to wash over her. But remembering her daughter's bright smile fueled Talia's resolve. "You may think that, but the truth is, it's Lily who will guide us. Together we are responsible for her happiness." Jill's expression turned smug, as if she relished the friction. "Are you even capable of that? Your lifestyle is chaotic, something that won't work for a child." Talia's heart clenched, but instead of crumbling, her mind quickly recalled the evidence of her dedication and love for Lily she had compiled. "Those moments you perceive as weaknesses? They are actually our strengths. The love I have for my daughter fuels my ability to be self-sufficient, adaptable, and committed." She could see Charles absorbing her words, gears whirring as he processed her declaration. Talia hadn't just defended her case. She had crafted a narrative where her struggles now became defining strengths, her chronicle of survival merging to redefine her as an empowered mother. "Don't forget," Talia continued, each word more resolute than the last. "Every moment I worked doubles or scrubbed floors wasn't just to survive. It was for her future. I want to demonstrate that our bond transcends ordinary parental duties. I want to create an extraordinary life for us." The air felt charged with emotion as Talia poured out her heart in front of them, no longer feeling shame or guilt, but a fierce pride. This was her fight. She wouldn't shy away from it. Now Charles shifted, his demeanor softening as he began to recognize the sincerity of her resolve. "I just want what's best for Lily too," he admitted, albeit reluctantly, "but I have a life to provide for her, a stable home. I want stability too, and I plan to keep it. But you have to see that it won't come from fighting between you and me. We should empower her, together." Jill's expression faltered, realizing that Talia wasn't merely a smashed mirror reflecting a chaotic past. She was actively creating a new blend, reshaping their lives constructively. Talia's words sparked a dialogue insulated from the emotional strife that had previously fretted through their conversations. A coalition that once felt unthinkable now seemed possible, illuminating avenues for collaboration that would foster a nurturing environment for Lily. As they discussed next steps, Talia encouraged transparency, commitment to co-parenting, and healthy communication. Hope began to unfurl like fresh petals in the sun, a tangible possibility of rebuilding relationships. Each of Talia's ideas was met with increasingly positive dialogue. Even Charles began to nod, slowly warming to the idea that they could collaborate rather than clash. With every moment, Talia felt herself evolving, not just in front of Charles and Jill, but understanding that she was becoming the mother she aspired to be. Courage balanced both doubt and resolution, weaving her own narrative stronger and brighter. With the meeting concluding, Talia felt exhilaration wash over her. They had agreed to ongoing discussions, intended to harmonize their lives for the greater good of Lily. It was the first step in their new journey, and at that moment, Talia stood steadfast, embodying the transformation she had fought tirelessly for. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, readying for whatever came next, embracing a future she would shape with powerful intention. As she stepped out of that conference room into the world that awaited her, Talia felt profoundly transformative. A supernova of willpower bursting forth, a newfound resoluteness shining bright in her heart for her daughter. Every challenge henceforth would meet an equally fierce challenge within her, and she knew without a doubt that she would fight fiercely to protect the family she was determined to nurture. Now her journey continued, but she had emerged, refined and unyielding, prepared to blaze her new path as both a protector and a creator, a proud mother. And as the evening sun dipped low, draping the sky with warm hues, Talia smiled as she thought of Lily. She was ready. Together, they would embrace the next chapter with open arms. Now, reader, this is your moment to embrace the journey. Don't let doubt hold you back. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let's transform lives. You need to support this channel because only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of uplifting each other. Don't wait even one more second to share.